This is a pretty standard shove on the left. This is more for value. I've seen people, get upset and get frustrated, fish and call with like queen eight suited there, jack nine suited there. So it's one, king three off plays horribly post flop, and two, it's just for value. Here, against this opponent, I think I can comfortably. I don't know. Let me think about this for a second. Okay, so looking back, I like my min raise pre. Even at a little bit over 8 big blinds, this guy has shown the tendency to play passively post flop. It's going to be easy for me to play even at that shallow stack depth, and it enables him to call such a wide range of hands that he's folding if I do shove. I don't mind the few times that board completely misses me and he outflops me, outturns me, whatever. I think the putting in the additional big blind from him, playing in position against a guy who really doesn't seem to be that creative, I think there is more value in min raising here than just shoving. Now I check back the flop. I think you can make a very small c-bet against the player like this. Like, let's say there's 190 effective after I min raise, so I could possibly bet 30, 35 and fold to a shove, expecting this guy not to be playing his draws aggressively even at that stack depth, and expect it just to be a ton of 3x, 10x, possibly 2x. But with the backdoor draws that I have with the spade especially, and two overcards when he does shove most of the time, it is going to be 3x, 2x. I do think I probably have enough equity to call, so I decided to check back, not expecting him to really be bluffing a ton on turns, which I think makes my check back better. I'm not going to be put in many difficult decisions from this player. When he shoves the river, I know I call here. I don't like my call looking back on it just because of what I've said about him playing passively. You don't see this line taken too often as a bluff. I'm not getting great odds because he overbet shoved. I know when I was playing, I made the call thinking like, one of the reasons I min raise is there's going to be a lot of dominated 9x in his range. And I made the call thinking like he could be shoving 9x for value here a lot of the time. Like 9-8, 9-7, 9-6, 9-jack, 9-queen, all those hands I beat. That, given this passive opponent, he could have played the same way. But I just don't really think he overbet shoves those 9x, and a fold is probably the better play. On the right, I decide to make a bigger c-bet here with the intention again of expecting an opponent that I don't have any history with to be on the more passive side. And therefore, this puts him in a difficult spot with 4x, 5x, a jack 3 type hand, king 2, king 7, all those type hands. When I bet bigger, I think it does look a little more intimidating, like there's less fold equity available for my opponent when he shoves, so therefore I think it increases his tendency to call with his weaker draws, even stronger draws, 4x, 5x, and against those hands, I have so much fold equity on turns and rivers, in addition to my backdoor draw, and my overcard, my queen, and the 3. I think betting bigger with the intention, again, of almost a value bet because I expect to have so much fold equity on later streets. I think I can comfortably bet fold here. You see on the right here, you may ask, why do I bet or shove 4-9 offsuit, but then not shove 5-9 offsuit? A lot of my shoving at this stack depth against an opponent relies on game flow. I don't want to be shoving every single hand because mentally it puts me in a more difficult spot because if you're shoving every single hand against the limper, even if he's a bad player, he's going to broaden his limp value range or just call you down more lightly. You know, just get frustrated and be like, screw this guy. I'm calling with my Jack 8 suited. So I decide based on game flow that I check back here. I don't want to give him the impression that I'm shoving every single time pre-flop when he limps. I think, you know, raising small is a possibility as well, but 5-9 offsuit I don't think is a great hand to do it with because it's almost like the reverse implied odds where you're making a pot larger with a hand that is dominated by a lot of a person's limp calling range. When the flop does come like 8-7, let's say 8-7-9, even that's a great flop for us. Not necessarily that one, but let's say 6-7, let's say 7-8-2, something like that. I'm not necessarily thrilled about it, even with my overcard and my gut shot, because, you know, this opponent, maybe not this opponent specifically, because his range seems to be so wide by him flatting 210 to a min raise at 8 big blinds. But when you're talking about regs, I would prefer to make a small raise. If you're going to make a small raise with a hand like 3-4 offsuit. Hands that just play terribly post flop, aren't dominated by a ton of a person's limp calling range to a small raise, and are pretty, you can kind of have a disguised hand when the flop comes low cards. So I would prefer, you know, take a hand like 3-4 off, 3-5 off, 3-6 off, hands that are somewhat connected, have some playability post flop, are disguised on numerous boards that hit your opponent's perceived range more than yours, and have a very low expectation by just checking back when the person limps anyway. I would prefer taking those hands over a hand like 5-9 off. I would prefer just shoving a hand like this pre-flop if you're going to do anything, because you do usually get those 9-8, 9-10, 9-jack type hands to fold unless the person is pissed off at you and decides to make a loose call, which does happen to me fairly often. So that's why, you know, I do check back here. When I lead out, I'm leading out to barrel tons of turns, but when the jack hits, see, he did turn up with a big hand there. When the jack hits, I just shut down. I don't think I'm getting many folds after that. This is a type of opponent also I would start to limp. That's a hand like I also think limping is fine, given this person's lack of aggression. Now here, this is a game flow thing. I think I screwed this up. He actually does turn up with a big hand here, which is surprising to me because I expect limps after he shows the ace-10 off. I very often see opponents be like, oh, well, I just showed up with a big hand. I just showed up with a big hand. He saw that I showed up with a big hand. Therefore, when I limp, he's going to actually shove less because, oh, he sees that I'm limping big hands. So I actually expect their range to be weaker the first time they limp, especially the next hand. I expect their range, or the two hands after that, I expect their range to be a lot weaker. Obviously, I was on the wrong level thinking against this player. But I hope that makes sense. Please leave a question if you don't understand my explanation there. I actually thought about commenting to him, but I decided not to be an asshole this video. I think I'm actually going to pause it there, guys. I fast forwarded for a few minutes and there's just nothing really to discuss that's interesting. So I'm going to cut it off at 23 minutes. Please leave questions for me. I will respond as soon as I can, and I look forward to making more videos in the near future for you guys. Take care.